All right, everybody, this is going to be a little bit obscure for most of you, I'm sure. Most of you probably not even hearing about starseeds or any kind of extraterrestrial phenomena or soul journey, soul stuff, even though that's what most of my videos tend to be about. But, you know, it is what it is. But this has to do with some insights I've recently come into about myself and most specifically the Orion civilization. So in my journey, I came across a doctor who did readings for people. He would read people's auras and help them to discover how certain influences from the past are impacting their perception of the present and inhibiting their ability to live a fulfilled life and help people work these things out. And in these readings, he would also mention things of starseeds and being from somewhere else that's not here on Earth. And amongst my time with him and studying certain things like Dolores Cannon and more recently the Law of One, the raw material, trying to figure this out and what this meant, right? Because I resonated with it. I've always felt myself as alienated and not being from Earth and trying to figure this out. And he mentioned Orion for me, and that resonated as I looked into things. It made a lot of sense, even though at the same time, right, Orion is a negatively polarized civilization for the most part, right? Those that have delved into this type of information have come across the idea of like reptilians or greys, right? These beings that are influencing our own planetary leadership to elicit one of psychological manipulation and control vis-a-vis the world you see and live right now, and attributing that these actions are done by somewhat of a brainwashing or telepathic communication, or that our leadership has been influenced by these negatively oriented beings. If that's true or not, it doesn't matter. The point is that from what I've discovered, there was a war, right? The Orion Wars that transpired at some point in time in our history. And in that time, some of those beings fled. Upon seeing what was going on, they decided to, this is my own hypothesis, they decided to change their polarity. Now coinciding with what Dolores Cannon has spoken, upon doing thousands of these regressions and the information that she gathered from doing so, coming to the idea of that at some point in time, Earth, the humanity sent out a call, or Earth sent out a call for help from other places, right? Earth was kept failing its class. There is historical evidence alluding to civilizations of the past, right? Atlantis, Lemuria, and even some before that I don't think they have names, but I've never been too hyper-focused on these things, so forgive me if I do not understand the details. But from her saying that there was a call put out to, for more evolved souls to come and help this planetary evolution because of humanity's past failures. This being because the cosmic ecosystem is all intertwined by electromagnetic fields. The actions of one space and time influence things on somewhere else. And so it's kind of like a lot of other civilizations are waiting for humanity to evolve for them to also move forward. Everything's all interconnected, and that's why there's negative beings holding us back, and there's also positive beings that are trying to boost us up and give us knowledge, right? This is what the raw material was. This is what some of the channelings like Bashar, Abraham Hicks, these channels are. They're tapping into higher evolved, they're tuning their radio to a channel that, or a bandwidth that contains much more evolved information or a much more evolved entity, and that entity speaks through this vessel or radio and gives information, right? It's channeling. And so that there are positive beings trying to help us too. And then that's a whole convoluted thing too, because there's some negative entities that pose as positive entities to help confuse humanity even more than we already are. But the point being that in this call, perhaps it coincided with the Orion Wars, and when those certain beings fled that war, they came to Earth to change their polarity, right? Orion being negatively polarized, and upon coming to see certain things, some people desire to now change polarity to being service to others, positively oriented. And that's where Earth comes in, right? So Earth being of third density being the density in which that choice is made or solidified, service to self or service to others, positive or negative, based off of the experiences you undergo here on this planet, you either become bitter, mean, selfish, resentful, or you open up to become more loving, compassionate, caring, right? There's that path that unfolds here from our experiences, right? Thus you have the power structure you see, which tends to be more self-serving and selfishly oriented. And then you have the spiritual leaders and the Gandhis of the world that are more compassionate and trying to better the human condition. And so some starseeds, and I include myself, this is why I come to these ideas or insights, is because I resonated with the idea of the Orion system and had so many traits and had my own history and past, of which was very much selfish, violent, angry, controlling, and all the things that tend to be Orion oriented. Upon recently reading the raw material and listening to things, I came to the idea of so some beings also came here to change their polarity, and I think that's what many of you are doing, because I know in my own spiritual journey I struggled with the idea of compassion or love and being of service to others. I didn't want to be of service, I just wanted to be me, be myself, screw everybody else. I don't like people, right? And I recognize that I'm not the only one that goes through that issue, and that's partly what this talk is for. Starseeds that resonate with the idea of starseeds but don't resonate with the idea of being a light worker or being somebody that's trying to enact some kind of beneficial change, some kind of evolutionary change of being compassionate, service-oriented, and all these light, fluffy, rainbow things that kind of turn some of us off. Right? Liking the psychology, liking the idea of shadow work, liking the understanding of the power of the mind and the limitations of the body, and that there's an evolutionary progression that unlocks more of the powers of the mind and less burden within the body. But that's going into a whole nother topic. If you were resonating with the whole concept of starseed, but not resonating with the light worker side, this is something to consider, right? That you came here to change that polarity, right? That's what you were. Especially if you resonate with the idea of Orion, but thus then you had more of a negative polarity. You're very intelligent, very wise, very understanding, but it's lacking the compassion, the love, the care. And that is part of what your purpose here is to change that polarity, which doesn't mean that's easy, and that's why you feel repulsed by some of these ideas. And you just got to push through, right? What do you want? Do you want to be self-centered, living in a world where the whole hierarchy is about control, manipulation, and authority? Or would you like a world that's much more caring, compassionate, and sharing, and aligned with the betterment of the human condition as a whole, understanding that if everyone has the same opportunity and the same resources, then a lot of the negativity we experience diminish, right? If we have a lot of resources and it's not necessarily equally distributed, but much more beneficially distributed, to where the top 3% get 98% of the resources and everyone else gets nothing, that leads to theft, crime, blah, blah, blah. Right? If it's more efficiently distributed, more fair, then the likelihood of crime and bad things happening are very much less likely. Understanding that if we better everybody, you yourself also benefit. What kind of world do you want to live in? Do you want this? Do you want that? Are you resistant towards that, to that love, compassion, caring, sharing? Well, then that's probably more aligned with what you're here to work on. That's why you are resistant towards it. And then just to conclude, since I am talking of the starseed stuff and other civilizations, I do want to just say that these things are not important. What is important is the work you're doing here and now. You came to Earth to do a thing, and to be distracted by trying to figure out, okay, what civilizations are there? Which civilization am I? I want to be an expert on all these different civilizations. But if you're not doing the inner work, which is the whole point of being here, then you're just wasting your time. You are just distracting yourself, and you won't get anywhere, you won't grow. You'll grow, but at a much slower pace. Basically what I'm saying is, don't distract yourself. Take what's beneficial for you and what helps you grow. Anything else and anything more is just the ego's desire for more, right? Which is part of what this whole conflict is, and this separation of polarities, right? Because the one of control and manipulation is ego-based. The one that's more sharing, compassionate, loving is spirit-based, right? The soul beyond the body, the soul beyond the ego. Blah, blah, blah. Hopefully that helped. Maybe that helped somebody, maybe that gave some insight, but yeah. Until next time.